this foundation and an amazing man I've had a lot of interaction with and is always present in these conversations. Thank you very much. A big round of applause for all of them. Next up, I would like to welcome our next session, which is a panel. And why am I turning pages? Because I want to introduce the facilitator of the panel, and I need about 5 hours. The panel is on This Is My Life, Living with Autoimmune and Chronic Diseases. And we have our special guest who will be introduced shortly by our moderator, who's Pinky Ghelani. If you do not know Pinky Ghelani and you live in Kenya, come and see me, Kando, please. Thank you. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about Pinky. This is what they wrote about you, by the way. It's just, I'm reading it, okay? Yeah. Pinky is a proudly Kenyan third generation of Asian origin. She's a passionate mom, a thought leader, an animal lover, a change maker, a yogi. She's a powerful speaker and aims to change perceptions through her voice. Having been in the media and fashion world for over 2 decades, as young as she looks, she now uses her platforms to empower women. Also being a high-profile supporter for UNHCR and working with refugees. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome my very dear friend, Pinky Ghelani. Okay, let me just get it. Have a seat, I'll get it for you.
Good morning, everyone. If Farah had told me that it's Davy who's introducing me, I would have said just leave it to him because he knows me really well and he really would have spoken from the heart as well. Davy and I go a long way back from my days on Capital FM and how he used to come and hang out with me in the studio. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here to moderate the first session this morning. Farah, congratulations on such a groundbreaking initiative. I had the honor of interviewing Farah for my show, What Women Want. And there's one thing that I took away from her. They say if hurting people hurt people, then healing people heal people. And that's what we're seeing today. There's a form of healing that's going to come out of this. So thank you, Farah. All right, so my panelists today are Catherine Nyambura, who's a medical scientist, a fine artist, and a warrior. Please give a round of applause for Catherine. We also have Maureen Muturi, a transformational life coach, an author, a motivational speaker, and a warrior.
I was 18. It took me 5 years to get that diagnosis. And then thereafter, I was diagnosed with PCOS much later. And those two generally, they intersect in some places. So fibromyalgia, the main thing, how I could describe it to you is, it's like your nervous system is on the outside of your body, kind of. It's just more sensitive. It doesn't react to stimuli how it should. So everything is elevated, pain is elevated, and that just, it seeps into so many other things that then affect your life after. It's like primary symptoms, secondary, and then to cross that with PCOS, it's like a monthly, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's like a monthly battle for your own sanity, really. Yeah, so in short, to cut it short, I could say that for now, and then
okay.
Maureen can continue.
Maureen, talk to us about your condition.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So my name is Maureen, as Pinky has introduced me. So for me, fibromyalgia is a chronic pain syndrome, and the way the brain interprets stimuli is different. So if someone were to come and just poke me, or those people who greet you from Kisumu and your hand is in Mombasa, that feels so painful. And even if you just tap my shoulder, your brain will interpret that as pressure, my brain will interpret that as pain. So we end up having a very low pain threshold. I could feel pain at a threshold of 2, but a normal person would be 5 or 6. So every stimuli that is considered normal isn't normal anymore. So we feel cold much, much worse than the actual cold. And heat and pressure and pain, barometric differences when the weather is this way, and then in 2 hours it's a different, it affects everything. Mostly affects the muscles and connective tissues. So there are times when we have something called a body ache, where literally each and every muscle aches. So it's hard to move. So the muscles are the most affected, and the joints, and I think that would be, in short, how it has affected me, and that would be my definition.
Maureen, just when you meet somebody who has no idea about your condition, how do you go about explaining it to them? Aside from what you've told us, which is quite technical, how do you break it down for maybe your friends or a boyfriend?
Well, first of all, it is hard because we are reading from very different scripts. When I get fatigue, I can't move. When you're tired, you can wash dishes, you can do something around the house, but it's not the same with me. So, for example, it's just, we say that my tired is tired, to try to just bring it home. And it just means that we feel more, we feel pain more, we feel pressure more. Moving around is hard. It's hard to stand for long, sit for long, walk for long. And the way we explain is that we are not able to do things the way you'd normally do. And when you get tired, you get to rest. We have morning stiffness, so when we wake up, it feels like at night your body had gone digging and it's just come back. And then you were hit by a bus before you entered the house. That's how it feels. Even on quote-unquote good days, the pain never goes away. It just becomes a bit bearable. And it depends with the activities we are able to do. So for just a person who has not heard of anything, of any of this, it's just imagining that you're in pain 24/7. If you're not in pain, you are fatigued. If that's not the case, you have a very clouded mind, and it's hard to do everyday activities. And just because I was able to do it today in 5 minutes or 1 hour, I can't do it anymore. So there are a lot of inconsistencies with our symptoms, which make us be told we are faking or feigning or exaggerating illness.
Wow. I'm going to come back to that because that's a very powerful statement, especially when people assume that because it's an invisible illness. So how do I take you seriously? Catherine, tell us about how you go about explaining to people about your illness. And, you know, it could be even someone who's your employer.
I was actually going to go in that direction. The two most relatable ways that I've found that are easy to explain to other people are usually with either working hours or hangovers. Hangovers are easy to explain. So like what she said, you know how if you've ever had a hangover and you wake up in the morning, just how bad it is, and you just
No.
You know.
I'm not
how you want it
no.
to end. How you want it to end. All those symptoms. Imagine those symptoms on a day when you weren't drinking, you weren't doing anything, you actually did well, you didn't go out partying, you didn't work all day, you just wake up to a migraine and nausea and the whole shebang with no reason. It's never really consistent, you never know, one day could be worse than the previous day. And then, so if I take that into a work context, so most people have about, let's say, around 8 to 10 hours where you can work, a 9 to 5 basically. So for people with fibromyalgia, it's about four solid hours that you can work. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's 4 consistent hours in the day. So you can see why it would be really hard to work around that. And today could be 4, tomorrow could be 5, the next day could be 1, so you're not really sure. And you could do everything right to try and, you could find a system and say, I'll find a rhythm. If I do this, I get these symptoms. And then one day you do the right thing and you still get the symptoms anyway. So I think those are the two ways I can really easily explain how it affects my life. Yeah.
So then, what do you say to your friends and your family, the people you're working with? That, I don't feel like today, and they tell you, stop it, get over it, come on, let's go.
It's really intense. I've had some horrible experiences, like with employment or with my family, especially around like family meetings, because it's always surprisingly inconvenient every time it gets really bad. So let's say it's work. I already have like the documents set from the hospital, because there's no way I could apply for a job and get it with my credentials, but I can't just walk in without without context. It's like, okay, here's a letter, here's what it says, this is in detail, this is what will happen, right? And so the employer will start by saying, it's okay, we can handle this, we can work around this, we can do this, we are. And this might be a sensitive spot, but we're an equal opportunity employer. Great, it's great in writing, but the practicality of every single day, sometimes, sadly, we see it from the employer's perspective, and we can see how it's really hard to plan around chronic illness. So you're stuck in the middle. You can see what people are struggling with when you're there, and you can see from your side that you want more accommodations, and then it's just like a sing-song between the two parties. Yeah. So sometimes you have a really good employer and they understand that we work really well from home, actually. The pandemic has been fantastic. I'm sorry for everyone else, but I have loved every minute of it because I've had time to cater to my symptoms and still be productive from the comfort of my home, So it depends. And not every fibro person has the same symptoms. Some of us have more migraines, some have more muscle pain, more stiffness. So in my opinion, it takes a little open-mindedness, patience, and just time. Yeah, that's it.
Maureen, coming back to you and what you said about faking it, has your condition affected your social life? Have you lost friends because of it?
Yes, I have. Quite a lot, actually. It used to bother me because I was diagnosed in 2012, and when I went back to school, I used to nap a lot. So when people have gone for lunch, I'm napping because those are the only 30 solid minutes I have before I have to continue with school. And then just someone who's very ignorant just passed, and why is she always asleep? And I wasn't that much asleep, so I had everything. So I just lifted my head, looked at her, just letting her know that I had what she just said, then went back. And so in school, I've been told I'm faking a lot, I want attention. When I was struggling with the diagnosis, I was 16 at the time. So doctors would tell my mother that I just don't want to be in school, and so I'm faking a lot of symptoms. However, it was they were so off the radar because I used to be the weird teenager who loved school. I loved school, I loved being in class, I cannot tell you why, I just loved it. And therefore that was very counterproductive if I would want to be in school and I'm not able to. So it used to stress me that others are in school, they're learning, but I'm out here. There's actually one doctor who asked me, just look at this corridor in the hospital, do you see anyone your age? I said no. And he asked, so what are you doing here? Well, in my mind, what I interpreted was, Missy, you're supposed to be in school, so stop trying to fake that you are not well. And someone once said, we don't fake being sick, we fake being well. It's actually easier to fake being well because people won't ask any questions. So what I decided, I have a very strong support system. My parents, friends, who even became family. So once I realized that you were not very accommodative of me, I decided that I don't need you in my circle, I do not need negative energy, and so I just let you go. And someone once asked me, why do you want to hold on so much to these people when you actually have people who understand you and all your cycles and the mood swings and the not being well in 5 minutes? So that's what I decided. If a person is not accommodative of me, I just let the person go. They may understand it, they may not, but I concentrate on the people who've actually they've made it a point to understand as much as they can. So for those whom I lost, I just let go. At some point, I just said, it might be hard for you to understand that I'm not able to do one thing 5 minutes after we've just talked. And so I embraced those who understand and just let go of any bad and negative energy, because it drains. The energy you're drained almost the whole day. So if I can help it, knowing that I have 1, 2, 3 people, I have 5 inner circle friends, I have some people I can call at midnight, I won't concentrate on the person who decides that I'm being inconvenient because I've cancelled our dates a couple of times. And it's hard to plan because, yes, we've agreed we'll meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. When I wake up, I can't move. I cannot move. So if I cannot get out of bed, how will I make it? And so there are people I have stopped scheduling with because it has become, every time we meet up, we plan to meet up, something gets in the way. And so there's a way that they will think about me after that. But I let it go because I have people who actually understand, and I appreciate that very much.
But it seems like you've done a lot of internal work. You've come to a point where you understand what to let go of and what to embrace. What about the people who haven't? Because it takes a big toll on your mental health. And, for you to lose friends or have doctors telling you that you're faking it, and these are adults, professionals who you're supposed to trust, who are supposed to investigate further, what does it do to your mental health to make you reach a point where you are able to fix yourself? Because it looks like that's what's happening here. It's like, this is my problem, I need to deal with it. What would you say to somebody who's struggling with the issues of chronic illness or chronic pain, autoimmune diseases, and how to handle their mental health? Maureen, we'll start with you, then Catherine.
Okay. So for me, I think it just took that point of thinking they don't understand this journey, and it's not theirs, it's mine. And I used to be angry, why can't they just understand? But then later I realized that it's not their journey to comprehend, it's mine. And so I had to start taking care of myself. Mentally, emotionally, I am an empath, someone who, these people who are anchors in friendships. I'm the people who pull people up. I'm the person who people come for advice. And sometimes I used to expend that energy more than I could. So quite often I would run on an empty tank. So I feel I have spent like 2 hours on a phone call, which I can't because it makes the fatigue worse, it triggers a migraine. And so I had to just like call myself to a meeting and decide, this is me, I'm meant to do these decisions. I now had to put a cap on my energy, the people I'm spending it with. When I'm sleeping, I used to put my phone on because I'd think someone would need me. Now it's just on silent. When I wake up, I will call you back if I get a missed call. And for those who are struggling with chronic illness and they just don't know how to do it mentally, think of it as your personal project. You teach others how to treat you. So for example, I had an event back at home about 2 weeks ago, and I just decided that for this one, I will not lift a finger unless I need to. So I delegated everything. The only thing I did was walk to the tent, do my speech. I did it seated. I had this idea, there are these ideas and standards we hold for ourselves that I need to be there for this person 24/7. I need to stand when giving my speech. For this event, I just told myself, they have come to celebrate me, knowing the challenges I have had, and so they would not mind me sitting. I'm the one who had the problem. I wanted to go the extra mile because that's just it's just in me that I need to do the extra mile. And so I'd say accept and embrace your limitations because you have them. I have people in my life who remind me, you're human. Stop wanting to have energy that even a normal human being doesn't have. So it's self-care, it's protecting your energy, it's having those little conversations of, even when I'm not able to take one thing out of my to-do list, I remained sane. I did something. That is, that's the only thing you can do, remaining sane. And so on days when I'm just out and I can't do anything, I just tell myself, Maureen, today's job is to remain sane, and that's what I do. I used to really beat myself up about it. I need to do ABCD, but now even if I don't, I believe that remaining sane was my job and I did it.
So it takes us a lot of self-awareness, I think. Catherine, maybe you can tell us, like I said, for anybody who has something similar or is struggling with something similar, how do you handle it, especially when it comes to your mental health?
When it comes to your mental health, what works for me, and I think it can be applied to a lot of other situations, even outside of chronic illnesses, is don't be afraid to prioritize yourself. It's a really difficult thing to do. It's easy to say in passing, but very difficult to put into action, because you feel guilty when you see other people around you, especially if you have an invisible illness. People really, they try to understand, but they just can't see it, you know. So I'd say simple things like, my favorite thing actually, even if I don't leave the house, I don't do much, I like to compile a list of the things I've done. Like, you know, like sort of like a checklist. Like, you know what, I made myself breakfast today. You know, I got out of bed, I sat in the sun, I had this amount of water, I had a nap at this time. Anything that I know will help my health in that situation, I make the list. Because if you don't make the list and you can't see it visually, at night you'll just find yourself telling yourself that, you know, I didn't do much today. You know, and that's not really fair to yourself, especially if you're sick. Everything counts, you know, because small things, I don't know if you've heard about the spoon theory. You know, it's like we wake up with a certain number of spoons, whether you're sick or not, a certain number of spoons. For people who have chronic illnesses, there are fewer. So you might wake up with about 10, and then someone who's not sick might wake up with around 20. So getting to a shower is 3 spoons gone, you have 7 left. What are you going to do with those 7? So if you go by seeing every activity as triumph, then over time, you're not that hard on yourself or other people around you either, you know, because everyone has something, I guarantee you that, and it just builds your empathy for how difficult it is to move through 24 hours as a human in any country, really. Other than that, I'd say prioritize yourself, make a list, and just take time. I know it'll sound kind of cheesy, but take time to have some gratitude over the simplest thing. Just find one thing. If it can be one thing in a day, just try and find the gratitude for that one thing, you know? You could have a glass of water. The next day you might have so much nausea you can't stomach the water, you know? So the little things count, in my opinion. And your focus, I love this quote, your focus creates your reality. If you focus on the bad all the time, even if it exists and you focus on it, it's just going to create a bad month, a bad half a year, a bad couple of years. Try and focus on the things that will lift your spirits. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about an incurable illness. You can't just focus on it forever. It's just, you're going to be sad forever. So that's my take on it.
That's amazing. And I don't think that's at all cheesy when you say focus, like do a gratitude journal. I don't know how many of us have a gratitude journal. Yes? Can we promise ourselves to have a gratitude journal? Because the minute you start being thankful, you bring yourself into that present moment. And a lot of the times we're under pressure that we need to be doing this or we need to be doing that. And you know, it's not only somebody who's suffering from any type of illnesses, it's all of us. And we forget that the present moment is where we are and where we need to be. And that's just how we bring it back. It really is. Human beings have complicated so many things. And it's just about going back to the simple things. I want to talk to you now about costs, like your day-to-day costs, and how it may be different from my day-to-day costs with somebody living with a chronic disease, a chronic illness. Maureen, maybe you can take us through it and just talk to us about what costs you incur if you want to share that with us. I know there's a lot that goes into medicine. Are there any special tools or special equipment that you need? Educate us on what you spend.
Okay. The financial burden is it's huge, because sometimes, for example, when I'm having a flare-up is when the symptoms, different symptoms just seem to rise at the same time, or the intensity increases. So when I have a flare-up, I have to mix a number of medicines together, and some of them are so expensive. There is a tablet I use for migraine that's 1,000 a tablet, just one. And sometimes it won't even work, but when we're desperate, we'll buy medicine, different types. There's consultation for the consultants. There's physiotherapy, which I do 3 times a week. Then there's seeing a psychologist, because the toll, as we've said, is the mental toll is just, it's huge, and it affects our functioning, our everyday living. And so we're always encouraged to see a counselor, see a psychologist, and not really because we are crazy, as some people would want to put it. It's just that when you have been in pain for a number of years, there's a way that your mind begins to think. And so when you put that all together, it's unbelievable. Sometimes we finish our outpatient insurance by May or June. So the other half of the year is out of pocket. And I haven't even mentioned being admitted, because we incur a lot. I've been admitted every year since I was diagnosed. And 2018 was a special year because I was diagnosed 7 times. I was admitted 7 times in total, 6 times between January and June. So there's a month that I was admitted twice. And by the time we were reaching June, our inpatient cover was done. Inpatient. And that was the year that we just saw how vanity it all is. And so for the rest of the year, we had to do out of pocket. And some will just see that because you're using an insurance, they think, yeah, we can mint some money from this. But it's hard. And my parents would tell a different story, because they shield me as much as possible to not know how much it costs. Because I would feel, so this is what I do. I just make them spend tons and tons of money, and I can't do anything about it. But that's a vague picture of what it takes, yeah.
Catherine, is it similar?
In some ways, it's similar. I can attest to incurring a lot of costs when it comes to seeing mental health professionals, outpatients. I haven't experienced much of being an inpatient. I end up just staying in the house instead because of that cost. Like you end up feeling like such a burden on your loved ones that you end up minimizing your own symptoms just to get by, because the other, like I have to take into account other people in the family, you know, people who need help just as much as I do. So I think for me the cost is, aside from the financial cost, there's a mental health cost, there's a social cost, even in the workforce, there's everything. You just have to account for how many friends you lose, how many family meetings you'll miss, and how you'll miss out in connecting with your family, the little ones who'll forget who you are because they haven't seen you for years. Or I think the most painful thing for me is being qualified or even overqualified for certain jobs, and you know you can't do it physically, you won't be there. So the cost of that also adds to your mental health cost, because just you have to pay for it, for the therapy, both a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and it doesn't really go away because that you have to keep paying for it, because as life moves on, the things that you're missing out on will send you back into therapy. So it's like a never-ending loop of just cost, just money flowing out of everywhere, you know.
So as we wrap up, I'd love to ask you, what will the Farah Foundation do for you? What is being associated to this foundation going to do for you as warriors? Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
I'm actually super excited to be here. Susan got me onto this. I'm happy that we're not as quiet about these things anymore. The shame isn't as heavy anymore, and the more we talk about it, which is what I know this foundation will give me an opportunity for, and everyone else who has chronic illnesses like I do, is to, if you're quiet, no one can hear you, no one can offer you help, In my experience, I've tried to have sessions like these, and every time I get surprised at the feedback that we get. It may be scary to come up here for us to talk and share things that we'd otherwise be guilty or shameful of, but I'm really happy that this foundation has given us an opportunity to spread this awareness and just have people listen and see that there are many different types of people out there, and anything you can do, any small thing you can do, or big, thank you, will go such a long way. Such a long way. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Maureen, maybe you can also add to that very quickly.
Yes, for me it's changing the narrative. To see that we are people, we can be functional as much as we struggle, and just knowing that we can be seen. For some of us, the first healing began when someone validated our pain.
Amen.
I mean, before I started being on drugs, the first thing was my doctor told me, you are actually in real pain. If anyone has told you otherwise, I am telling you now you are in real pain. Whew, I took a breath and I'm like, so I have not been crazy. And so I love that there's this platform where we will see different autoimmune conditions manifested, how they look like, how they affect us. Because as much as she and I have fibro, it affects her differently than it does for me. And I love the fact that we are able to now speak about it and be able to be open about the struggles that we're not even willing to tell our families about. We hide a lot. But now just having a platform where we can actually advocate, just patient advocacy, and that's beautiful.
Thank you. I think it's very brave of the two of you to come up here and speak so openly as well. You are the voices that are going to make this change, and the conversations need to continue. And as we take, the information that we have here home today, and to whoever's going to be watching this as well, I think what I can take away is that we always have to be kind. When we say invisible illnesses, the things that we don't see. So you don't know what the other person is going through. You don't know why the other person is moving slower, or taking a few more breaths, or napping a bit more. So what we need to do is be considerate. And my mother always taught me one thing, that when you see someone struggle, don't walk away, don't look away. Help. And help doesn't always have to be financial. It can also be just giving that person some time, sitting with that person and understanding that person. So Farah, thank you very much for allowing me to moderate this morning. It's been a privilege, and it's always such an honor to understand more about this community. And when we say invisible again, I don't think it's that invisible, because if we are keen, we will see. Thank you, everyone. Have a great, wonderful rest of the day. Devi,